Hi everyone, welcome to the Stay Hungry podcast with Joel and Andy at Codebreak. Today we're talking about the 6 words that will kill any business. Andy, how you doing?
Very good, how are you?
All right, I'm interested to know what these 6 words are.
That's good because I've already annoyed myself literally with the first thing I said. That's terrible. By using the word very, you know, my absolute copywriting hatred of that word, of that weak word. And I said, you asked me how I was, and I said I was very good. Terrible. I should have said I'm excellent.
Does it upset you in spoken word as well, does it? No, maybe, unsure.
I didn't hear any of that. We have the joys of both of my kids being at homeschool via Google Classrooms, and I think my internet connection is unstable. So I'm afraid for our dear listeners, you'll have to repeat everything you just said.
Okay. I said, does the word very upset you in the spoken word too?
Any instance of the word very, any instance, written especially. I suppose spoken, yeah, you can say it. Oh God, I was just about to say you can say it very easily. It's an often used word, but in the written word, there is no excuse for using the word very in any kind of sales or marketing copy. So there's a great tip to start off the podcast with, even though it's nothing to do with the theme of today. But hopefully people will find that of use.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are these 6 words?
Right, the 6 words that will kill any business. We've always done it this way.
Right. So what? I don't know what you mean.
I'm double checking myself and I'm just counting up to 6. We've always done it this way. The 6 words that will kill any business. Business owners who are stuck in the mud. Maybe they're a bit scared of tech. You know, tech plays a big part in this. But because they've ran their business this way for 20 years, or because their daddy and their granddaddy ran it before them, always done it this way, there's no reason to change anything, even though the competition may be more rife, the competition may be more aggressive. It doesn't matter. We've always done it this way, and they stick their head in the sand and carry on. And unfortunately, what usually happens is they go out of business.
Right, I'm with you now. I'm with you. Okay. So we see a lot of this. A lot of businesses that ask for our advice, let's say, and then when we give it and it's different to what they're used to, they feel uncomfortable.
It is difficult. It is when you're a business owner. I think part of the reason people become a business owner is because there's a bit of control freak in them. And let's face it, it's like, I'm going to go into business because I can do it better the way I want to do it, rather than how my competitors do it or how my ex-employer did it. I'm going to set up on my own. And so it is hard to take advice. And to be honest, actually, we've just done, I think it was a blog or a video I did about taking advice. Actually, it was my latest Marketing Monday email. It was about everyone is an expert with other people's business. And because of social media, you are bombarded with advice left, right and center of people who, to be honest, 9 times out of 10 aren't qualified to be giving you that advice. So I do understand it's hard as a business owner to consider that someone else's opinion, even though it's different to yours, may be right. And these are the kind of business owners that would never, they'd see it as a sign of defeat to employ a business coach, to employ a marketing consultant, to join a mastermind group. And they're the kind of businesses that exactly what we're here to talk about, because they're almost like the worst thing that can happen to their business. They've had this great idea, but they actually need to step back and let experts run it for them. Otherwise, it'll just go pear-shaped.
Yeah, and I guess we'll have sort of 2 kinds of listeners on the podcast for this. We've got the listeners that will be like, well, this doesn't apply to me because I quite happily let go of the reins and I outsource to the right people and stuff. And then there'll be the listeners that consume as much information as they can so that they can do everything themselves. And this will be useful for both parties, because the ones that consume as much information as they can and try and do everything themselves will hopefully see that that's not always the best way. And the ones that do let go of the reins and do let other people do things will probably pick up some ideas around the other things they can let go of, and also kind of what's going on with those things.
Exactly. I mean, there's a brilliant article. People should be able to find it on LinkedIn, written by, is it Ben Francis, the founder of Gymshark,
Yeah.
and he literally started doing everything himself. I think it was in his nan's bedroom, literally embroidering all this gym gear himself. And when Gymshark obviously went absolutely massive, he quickly realised that even though it was his baby, there were a lot of responsibilities he had to step away from because he couldn't do everything. And in fact, he found that there were people who were basically better than him at certain tasks. And it takes a brave man or woman to delegate that responsibility, to accept that actually the best thing for my business is to employ people or outsource to people who are better than me at doing these tasks. And like you say, there are some business owners who will be like, well, no one better than me. And there'll be others who will actually, yeah, I'm willing to learn and to listen to the right people. And if you're the former, hopefully podcasts like this would be of tremendous use, because we speak from long experience. I've seen it happen to many a business owner. Sort of happened to my father in business, to be honest, that he was the last, he had a massive fear of technology. And that held him back, like when everyone else was getting computers into the business and he wasn't. He really sort of paid the price for that, and tech is a massive part of this. So I think we see this kind of ostrich scenario when you bury your head in the sand. I think this is happening a lot more now than it was 10 or 20 years ago, because there's lots of tech to adapt to, let alone different marketing strategies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I had a conversation with my mum over the weekend, actually, where she was doing something on an app, and I told her how to put it right. And she said, well, it's easy for you. You've grown up with technology. And I sort of think that's the general attitude of a lot of people who bury their head in the sand about tech, that technology's always been there. It's just that this technology isn't the same as the technology you're used to.
Absolutely. I know. My mum knows what I do for a living, sort of, because I work in marketing, which involves email and social media and Google ads, for example. She always thinks that means I can sort her Wi-Fi out. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, tech. I've had to learn about this stuff, and there's other things I've had to learn about. I haven't grown up with this. I grew up with like the VHS video recorder. That was my sort of childhood technology. Nothing to do with social media. I've had to learn stuff to better my business, to better how we can better help clients. And also, I guess we'll come on to the fact that no, you can't just blindly chuck yourself at every new technology going. But you have to understand, I think, that the fundamentals of marketing don't change. Absolutely clear about that. Market, message, media. It's always been the same. It will always be the same. You got to know who your audience is, your market. You've got to know what to say to them, your message, and you've got to know where they consume their media. So the platforms don't change. Sorry, the fundamentals don't change, but the platforms do, and you have to decide which ones you need to look at and which ones won't be relevant to you.
Yeah. I mean, we had this exact conversation recently. So the fastest growing social media platform in the world at the moment is Clubhouse. And I guess for those of you that don't know, it's kind of like an audio version of Twitter. And actually, I found out today, Twitter have responded, and they've essentially made a thing. I think it's called Twitter Rooms, which is Clubhouse, but under Twitter's branding. But we have to have that conversation internally about, is this something we should be looking at? Do we need to be aware of it? Is it going to fundamentally change how our business or our industry works? And there are a lot of businesses out there that just aren't looking at it like that.
Yeah, it's because we had it last year. Lots of businesses saying to us, "Oh, you're using TikTok. Oh, should you be using TikTok?" Now, if we had, I don't know, a student bar approach us about helping them out with their marketing, TikTok is absolutely, it's something we would test and measure with them. So absolutely, we have to know how Twitter works, its advantages and its disadvantages. But that doesn't mean you could roll it out like blanket wide across all clients. We're not going to start using TikTok to promote our legal practice clients. We're not going to use TikTok to promote our accountancy client. And so yeah, there are people, I think, who are the opposite of the ostrich, and they do literally chuck themselves at everything: Clubhouse, Twitbook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever it might be. And they're the sort of people who probably 5 years ago had every social media logo printed on their business card. And so still, our advice, generally speaking, is, do 2 or 3 things really well rather than trying to do everything.
Yeah.
But it's, I suppose, like most things, it's getting that balance, isn't it? Because the robots aren't taking over. You can't have that fear. The tech is there to make our lives easier and, to be honest, to make the results of our work more effective.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly that. I think certainly certain generations thought that they were going to be able to work less as technology got better. But what it's actually meant is that companies can output more is the payoff. And I think now companies are coming to terms with the idea that actually maybe we shouldn't just output more. Maybe we need a balance. But that isn't an excuse to ignore it. So there's lots of automation within our business, lots of technology within our business, lots of things that we use that help us look like we're doing an incredible amount of work, but we're perhaps not quite doing as much work as people think we are because we're employing the right tools.
Yeah, which also basically frees our time up to learn more and to work more on strategy to make the results even better. Because if 100%, if any business is listening now, if 100% of your marketing is manual, you are making work for yourself. And I mean, depending on how many employees you have, you'll struggle to keep up with how these platforms are ever changing.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing. And there's nothing clever about being old school. Old school has so many bad connotations. I remember it was, I hope no car salesmen are listening, or women, but there's a car salesman I knew, and he was a bit hands-on, shall we say. Not with me, but with a lady who worked with me. Nothing really, but there was a handshake was a bit longer than it needs to be, kind of thing. And his boss said, "Oh, yeah, he's a bit old school." It's like, that's not an excuse. That there's no justification for that. But a lot of people do seem to think that they will get staying away from technology. It's almost like a badge of pride.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh, don't use email in my business. Never had to. It's like, well, you work 80 hours a week, and he's going to kill you over because you are.
Yeah, and your pigeons are starting to molt. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember? I mean, when we started out in business, social media, it's a bit of fad, and then before that, the internet, websites. No, got the yellow pages. Me, well, good luck with that. And yeah, I remember, well, it's a long time ago now, when we could go out drinking in pubs. I went to Liverpool to meet up with some old friends of mine, and we were, going around a few pubs and bars. Went into one pub, a bit of karaoke going on there, so immediately I wanted to turn away, but my friends were a lot more drunk than I was, so they wanted to stay. Got to the bar, and the barmaid said, it's cash only. And it was like, sorry, so have we stepped back in time or something? This is 2020. And so we went elsewhere. Now, I'm sure she wasn't bothered. I'm sure lots of people were okay with that. But it's like, oh my God, you don't accept card, any types of payment apart from cash. And I was flabbergasted there are still businesses surviving that would operate like that.
Because they don't pay any VAT.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was. In fact, actually, this has also happened in Oxford. Yes, we were doing a pub crawl in Oxford. It sounds like I do a lot more in my life than just pub crawl. But we went to quite a few really nice pubs, and obviously Oxford, some real sort of oldie worldy pubs. We were drinking in is it the Eagle and Child, where Tolkien and C.S. Lewis used to meet up? And that was lovely. Paid by card or used my phone like most people do. But went into another pub, cash only. It's like, okay, thanks, have a great night. Went off to another pub.
Yeah, you see that all the time, and I find that it's almost like there was a greengrocer where I grew up, and when obviously everybody, it was enforced that everything had to be in metric rather than imperial.
Right.
And this is in the last 30 years, so this is insane. But because he felt that he had an elderly audience, he made sure that the signs were massive for anything in pounds, shilling and pence or whatever, and tiny for anything in grams and kilos. But what that meant was that when my generation grew up, we didn't use his greengrocers because we didn't understand what any of the weights were. And
Wow.
and that greengrocers isn't going anymore.
It's I mean, it's strange because I mean, you could very easily make this podcast, I think, sound like it's sort of aimed at older people, and I'm very aware that a lot of people who look at me as an older person, but we see this happening to people of all ages. It's, you know, technology is changing so quickly, and you can very easily get left behind. And again, no, not every technology will be right for you, but it doesn't even have to be about technology. It could be the fact that technology has played a part, for example, in making everyone want a deal. Every website you see, every Facebook ad you see about selling widgets, there's some kind of deal or offer and upsell. You know, not just talking about discounts, although they can work well for some businesses, but it's like, we will give you this in return for your email address, or spend X and get Y free, cross sells, upsells, all fantastic stuff. To the point where technology has made that almost expected. Even my mum now, if she's on a website considering buying something, she will expect to see or get hit with some kind of deal.
Yeah.
So strictly speaking, this has nothing to do with technology. It's the fact that technology has made people think like that. But we know there are business owners out there who are like, no, I don't need to do a deal. I've been established for 30 years, never had to do a deal. My daddy and granddaddy before me never had to do a deal. And it's like, okay, well, I admire your stance on that. But the fact is, times have changed, and accordingly, people have changed. And if people are looking for a deal, as long as you're okay with the fact that half the people coming to your website or whatever are going to go off because there's nothing to make them, to tempt them into parting with their money, it's like, well, that kind of business is the kind of business that thinks having a shop on the high street will be enough. The fact that they're in a high traffic footfall location will be enough. No. Having a shop on the middle of the high street ain't going to make people more likely to come in through those doors. You need to have something in the window, something on the signage that's going to make people think, oh, right. Oh, I never noticed that before. Oh, that's good. Oh, I'll go in and have a look, and hook them in. And we know there are businesses out there that would refuse to even compromise on that.
Yeah, I've got another point on this people change scenario, and it's something that we've wrestled with too. Your audience over time will change. So let's say your Gymshark's a good example. When Gymshark launched, they were probably selling to Generation X, so anybody kind of born in the 80s or whatnot. Now they sell to millennials. Now, the difference between my generation, born in the 80s, and millennials is quite stark. We've had quite different experiences growing up. There's a different outlook. I'd say millennials are much more in touch with their feelings, much understand more about their own wellness and stuff, where my generation was kind of push hard, work hard, get results. That's all that matters. And there's a trend, and I do this, where every generation blames the generation behind it for all of life's ills. So at the minute, you know, millennials take a beating. When I was younger, we took a beating. I'm sure when you were younger, you took a beating because technology was meaning your life was easier than the people before you, sort of thing. And
yes, I had to deal with the war. That's a very hard one to trump, that one. And it's like,
we're I'm a lover, not a fighter. Just that's the comeback, isn't it?
Yeah, I can imagine saying that to my late grandfather.
If I'd have been around, there wouldn't have been a war.
Just gone over, hopped over the channel, given Adolf a cuddle.
Yeah,
that's what you needed.
Did anyone ask him if he was okay?
Oh yeah, it's strange. So I you know what I'm thinking about now, though? I'm thinking about my Gymshark joggers, because I was born in the 70s. Do I need to give them back now?
Well, I did warn you.
Yeah. Oh God, I can't be that. What was the film? The Wedding Singer, and there's the Adam Sandler character in it. I haven't seen this for years now, but you know the film, don't you?
Yeah.
And his best mate is like a Fonzie type character. And you know, he's in his 40s, thinks he's really cool, still wearing a leather jacket and stuff. But then, you know, he comes to the realization that one of the reasons why Happy Days, the TV show, was cancelled is because no one wanted to see a man in his 40s in a leather jacket still trying to act like he was in his 20s.
So
yeah, maybe I do need to get rid of my Gymshark jogs. I can't have people like looking at me sympathetically thinking, how old do you think he is?
Well, I'll call you out on this on the podcast. Why not? But one of the funniest things you've ever said to me was the crotch is very low.
Oh, I mean, it makes me laugh. I mean, we'll be driving about and we'll see some sort of, well, I'd say kids, but they're not kids, adults, but walking around with these trousers. I mean, God knows what my dad would think if he was still.
Like,
I remember when my dad dropped me off at university. So mum and dad took me to university on the first day. So back in '92, this was, and we drove onto campus, and there were goths, there were sort of rockers. And I remember this lady with pink hair crossed the road in front of us, and my dad's face was just like, "What? Why isn't anyone in suits?" And it's like, Dad, this isn't Andhra Pradesh Medical College in the '60s. But yes. Oh, low crotches on trousers. They do still bother me, Joel.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I was going to mention, but we can't say his name, it wouldn't be fair. But there was someone that we used to go to networking with who looked a bit like the Fonz, and I was
right. I'm not going to be able to concentrate on anything else in this podcast, and I'm going to be sat here thinking, who was Joel on about?
Someone right, you'll have to tell. Distinctive kind of Elvis quiff, who
total coincidence. He's just checked me out on LinkedIn literally this morning.
There you go. But there's an example of someone who's stuck in the past.
I'm just jealous I haven't got enough hair to have an Elvis quiff anymore, although it is getting rather bushy.
Yeah, it feels like for me I'm going to just have to bring the skinhead movement back again, but I don't think...
Are you going to go full on Triple H again?
Oh, I don't know what to do. Anyway, we digress. So people change, situations change, the tech changes, and you've got to move with the times or you're going to get left behind. But what about competitors?
Yeah, so I mean, there's always been, you'd be very lucky to be, I said very again, you'll be lucky to be in business and not have any competitors. But one thing technology certainly made it easier for people to do, for competitors to do, is to get in front of people. So a competitor, right, I want to run an ad that's going to target the people most likely to buy off me, which means they're the same people who are perhaps already your customers. And I would say the fact that it's now easier, as long as you're willing, to do your research and to part with money, it's now easier to get in front of your competitor's audience. So that means that loyalty, it's easier to switch. I mean, lots of us are loyal to different brands, but I'd say that loyalty is what it used to be, because to be honest, it was a pain in the arse to switch providers before. Now the whole everything, banking, utilities, it's all easy to switch now. It's all, oh, brilliant, right? So you mean there's an app that will just automatically find a better electricity provider for me every 6 months and automatically move me over? I mean, how much I like an easy life. I could never be asked switching utilities providers. It was so much of a hassle. Whereas my friend Ed, bless him, he'd consider it a failure if he wasn't online every day looking for whether he could get 1p a day cheaper electricity. So it is now easier to remove people's loyalty from one business to another, and it's a lot more cost effective to be more aggressive in your marketing these days. The fact that, well, actually, if I spend 5 times the amount of money on, say, Facebook ads, I won't just get 5 times results, I'll get 10 times the results. And as long as, again, you do your research, it's easier to basically nick customers off your competitors.
Yeah.
And if you're there with this, I'm putting my hands up in inverted commas now, old school approach that I look after my customers, they're loyal to me, that's a really risky game these days.
Yeah, I think you've touched on a good point there. Some of the old ways are still the best. So getting yourself in front of a customer and talking to them face to face, you can't beat that. Or making sure that when a customer reaches a milestone, you send them something nice, that kind of thing. That'll always still be in place, but that doesn't mean you don't employ the other things that give you an advantage. And very often people only see the big shiny stuff and don't realize that actually a lot of that might be automated, or maybe even their competitors are targeting them directly. So it might be that your competitor is targeting your company name for their pay-per-click campaign, and you've been caught napping and they've been harvesting all of your potential leads.
Yeah, so the video I'm recording today is about the importance of building your email database. And the fact that, email, okay, you might have to pay a little bit for a legally compliant mass email system, but it's a pretty easy way to stay in touch with people who have expressed an interest in your product or service, or they are already customers. Because if a competitor starts targeting one of your customers and your customer thinks, yeah, actually, comes to think of it, when was the last time I heard off my, existing supplier? If they can't think, they are much more likely to switch. Whereas if they, oh yeah, well, no, I got an email off Andy and Joel a couple of days ago sharing some free advice, you're going to be front of mind more often. And so it'll be harder to switch. Whereas so many companies, say for example, they don't employ email marketing, maybe they put all their eggs in, I don't know, Instagram's basket or Facebook's basket, which is great because we love social media when it's done correctly. But if you fall foul of one of those platforms for whatever reason, whether it's innocent or malicious, and suddenly, oh, hang on, what's going on here? My Facebook reach was 100,000 people a week, and suddenly it's dropped to 10,000. Oh shit! So gathering email addresses, as long as you obtain them again legally, is a sound thing to do because it puts you in control.
Yeah.
And email is now such a old technology. There's almost like no excuse. It's not some newfangled way of communicating. It's just putting you in the driving seat, being able to get in touch with the people you need to when you can. And I'd say that needs to be quite often these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that database management is one of the most underutilized tools in all businesses. I think a lot of businesses think it's reserved for big business, like the Facebooks of the world and Google of the world, but actually the amount of people you've met in the time that you've owned your business, and the amount of those people that at some point might be useful to you or could become a potential customer or might know a potential customer, and you've just taken their business card and put it in your drawer, or you haven't added, connected with them on LinkedIn, you haven't added them to your database, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a massive missed trick because I think when times are good, it's easy to almost forget to communicate with people. And what we saw happen during the first lockdown is that these companies whose database you're on, but they'd never contacted you because times were good. As soon as lockdown hit and suddenly the whole world has given this massive jolt, shit, my customers have is dropped off overnight. I need to start emailing them. And suddenly you start getting bombarded by these emails off companies. You think, well, who are they? You think, oh my goodness, I remember. Yeah, I remember buying something off them like 5 years ago. Never heard of Dickie Bird since. But now suddenly all I'm getting is spam because they're not dropping me emails of interest, of relevance and value. They're literally just sending me sales-led spam day in, day out. And that's just going to do more harm than good. Marketing is about communicating no matter whether things are good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that a lot from print companies, that as soon as the shit hits the fan, I'll get 3 or 4 emails on any given day saying, don't forget us when it comes to your next print job. And it's like, oh, what have you done for me?
Who are you?
Yeah, I vaguely remember you sending me a message.
I've been getting a lot of emails actually. The past couple of weeks from print houses, but funnily enough, because of the level of print we do for clients, we've got good relationships with 2 or 3 print suppliers, and they stay in touch with us regularly. Probably all automated, but they're still front of mind. I've got no interest in going elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think was it the last podcast or something recently we talked about my car? My car's up in November, and I'm not going to stay with the same supplier because I'm sick and tired of just never hearing anything off them, apart from when the car's up for renewal. So I've already made my mind up. I'm switching to another brand.
Don't cross Andy Rowe. He's stubborn.
You make it sound like a bad thing. Right. What about we talked about, obviously you stick your head in the sand that social media is the biggie, and a lot of it. Oh, I don't use Facebook. It's ridiculous. Which is okay. That's fine. But do you then assume that no one else in their right mind uses Facebook? Do you think that goes on?
Oh, a huge amount. And that's something that a lot of business owners get wrong with their marketing, is they impress their gut instinct or their their own emotions about a platform or a service on their own business, when in fact they should be thinking about their audience's feelings about that platform or service. And that can be really tricky, because I can fall into this myself. Is I feel like I have a good gauge of what we should or shouldn't be doing, but maybe I'm not our ideal customer. And let's say Facebook's a great example, because most people are on Facebook, whether they know it or not. They'll have WhatsApp, they'll have Instagram, they'll be on Facebook, or they'll consume information from Audience Network. And so to say my business isn't doing Facebook, or I'm not doing Facebook ads, they're a waste of time, my customers are on LinkedIn, is just factually incorrect.
Yes, I mean, this is the 6 words that will kill any business. We've always done it this way. There are 5 words that will also kill any business, and they are, well, I wouldn't do that. And like you just said, you've got to remove yourself from the equation sometimes. As I know you've got a big beef about Facebook ads, because, well, a lot of people don't realise or haven't been told that Facebook ads don't just appear on Facebook. So it doesn't matter whether you like Facebook or not, whether you use Facebook or not, whether you rightly or wrongly think your customers or potential customers don't use Facebook. Yeah,
and you see the same with Google ads. People say, where we live, they'll say, "Oh, I saw an advert on the Shropshire Star," and I'll reply, "Oh, a Google ad? No, it was on the Shropshire Star." and I have to explain, that was a Google ad, and there's nothing wrong with not knowing that. That's fine. But when you're talking to an agency or a consultant or your marketing team, and they're saying, "Look, we need to do some Facebook ads here because most of our audience are on Instagram, and the best way to get at them is between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So we're going to run ads at that specific point." Your ears should prick up and you should listen, because they're presenting facts to you. They're not just suggesting an idea because they think it might work.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one, isn't it? That say Facebook ads, like you mentioned, Google ads, that it's just a constant reminder to us in our profession that education is such a big part of it. Because I think I laughed a bit when I said about Facebook ads don't just appear on Facebook. Obviously, nothing to laugh about. A lot of people just don't know that.
Why would you know that? Why would you know that?
Yeah. So knowing that is important for our clients, because Facebook ads, generally speaking, can help target any kind of person, regardless of age or demographic or interest. They are a wonderful, wonderful tool. But like with anything, you test and measure it. So it's being open to learning facts like that, because, like I say, the theory and stuff ain't going to sell anything. But if you're there with someone you trust and they're telling you facts about your target audience, you'd be wise to listen to them. Like there are loads of facts out there about how the mobile phone is people's, device of choice for browsing the internet. But there are still quite a few business owners out there who haven't touched their website for years, and that's a massive one, because the website 90% of the time is the final link in the chain. They might see an ad of yours in a newspaper or online, or a leaflet through the door, but before making that buying or inquiry decision, they will go and check out your website. So if you haven't touched your website for years and it's not mobile friendly, that's something else that you really don't want to bury your head in the sand about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it just blows my mind when people do this, when they lose sight of kind of how to get to their marketplace. And I understand why it's happened. Even in the last 60 years, business was hyper localized, then it was local, then it was regional, then it was national, and now it's international. And that's a tremendous journey for a lot of people to have been on.
Yeah, it's like, because sometimes it's almost like a vicious circle. I find that, say you haven't touched your website for years, so it isn't mobile friendly. Sometimes you're going to be, well, yeah, but my website doesn't do anything for us. So yes, because it's crap. And if your website wasn't crap, if it was mobile responsive, if you did some work into search engine optimization, or maybe paid for Google ads and social media optimization, chances are you're going to be hugely surprised.
Yeah, Yeah, that's such an important point, isn't it? That I guess if you haven't fully embraced that your website, particularly in COVID times, is your shop window and kind of the first place where you can make a detailed impression of your business, you're missing a massive trick in how people behave nowadays, even how my gran behaves.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, I suppose we talk about our grand and mums a lot, and yeah, my mum knows, you know, she's on her iPad in her 70s, and if she sees a website that she can't browse properly because it doesn't work properly on her iPad, she knows not to buy off that company. She knows, well, okay, if they don't realize that or can't be asked to invest in that, I don't want to give them my money because they haven't got my trust. And that's how a lot of people think. And it's now I understand, especially when you're starting up a business, money is usually tight. So how many small businesses we see start up who have built their website themselves, or they've seen an ad for a free website provider and they've gone with it, and again they've used the platform to try and build it themselves, and sometimes they can end up with a decent enough website. I mean, I've still failed to see one that is better than if they'd let a professional do it. But usually when I say, okay, looks okay, pretty good. How long did it take you? I mean, usually their face just drops and tells me everything I need to know. It's taken their entire life. It's taken them away from their children. It's cost them weekends, evenings. Like, well, you might have been better off finding that money from somewhere to pay a professional to do it, because they could have done it in a fraction of the time, and the end result would be something that would better reflect you as a business owner. It's one of those areas where you've really got to think carefully about, I want to pay the least amount of money possible for my website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's it kind of blows my mind, that situation, and the whole fact that you've probably spent a fortune to get your business off the ground, either in blood, sweat, and tears, or in cold hard cash, and then like you say, the final link in the chain is your website, and you've kind of bodged it, and you don't know about SEO, so you just left that on the automatic settings that your website provider gives you, or you don't know that you need to compress your images so they're all massive and it's slowing your website down, or you don't realize about structure, because why would you? That's not your job. And so you just dump all the information on the about page and expect people to find it. And you're kind of fighting with one hand tied behind your back. Then you might be brilliant at marketing, but when they get to the point where they can purchase, or they can contact you, or they can fill in the form you need them to fill in, and it just doesn't feel right, how much business are you actually losing because of that?
I sometimes find as well that just because of business naivety, again, why would someone who doesn't know about these things know about these things? That you've done your website yourself, or maybe your cousin's best mate's brother does a bit of web design. I mean, does a bit of web design, does a bit of social media, more phrases that will kill any business. But your website goes live on Monday, and then you're like, on Tuesday, I can't find it on Google. And it just, I wish it did work like that. I wish a website went live and it magically appeared for all the right searches. But that takes time, knowledge, effort, and usually money. And if people are paying for other kind of ads, like I said before, whether it's an ad in the paper or whatever, if the final link in the chain before inquiring or buying is still going to be your website, you've wasted money, because your website's the weak link in the chain, and it only takes one weak link. And say, don't spend money on any kind of advertising. Spend that money on getting your website right first, that it works on iPads, it works on mobile phones, it's easy to navigate, it focuses on conversions, not just clicks, because getting traffic's wonderful, but it's only half the battle. I've had 50,000 people to my website this month. Did any of them buy off you? Well, no. Well, I'd have rather had 5 people visit my website and all of them bought.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's just such a, I mean, to be honest, we do a podcast just about websites, but the fact that, oh, I haven't got a website, never needed one, or I haven't touched my website in years because it was crap and never did anything for us. It's just making work for yourself, perhaps, as a business owner. Again, these tools are here to help make the marketing and the selling easier.
Yeah, hugely. Yeah, exactly that. I mean, websites one you just can't ignore. I struggle to make a case for any business to not have a website now, whether they've got a brilliant social media presence or not. I think you're missing a trick. But I guess something that comes up quite a lot with this kind of stuff is it's all right following the trends. It's all right following customer behavior. It's all right keeping up with the latest tech. But how do you know what to choose, what you should be doing? Is there a risk, we meet businesses, they jump on every bandwagon, but they don't really do anything very well?
Yeah, it's like with anything. If you try and spread yourself too thin, you'll come a cropper. So you either need help, so employed or outsourced, or if budgets are tight, or for whatever reason you don't want the hassle of outsourcing or employing, focus on the 2 or 3 things you are the marketing avenues you are really good at, that you can test and measure properly, and follow the numbers. So you've got to take a risk. Running a business is a risk. Some things cost. That's the price of business. So it's actually right. I've done lots of learning about Facebook, about when to post, what to post, how often to post, how to build it. It just ain't working for me. If you can honestly say you've done that research, it has worked for you, okay, put that down to experience and focus on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
But just it makes me sad when I see not suited and booted professionals, but so people in certain industries who are now dancing on TikTok. Right, Joel, if ever you see me dancing on Reels or TikTok, just shoot me now, because
I don't need an invite.
I've just seen so people think, oh my God, you're doing this because you think you should be. And that just because your 17-year-old niece has said you should be on TikTok, it's like, you're an HR advisor. Please don't do it. No one's going to come up and publicly ridicule you, of course, because most people are nice, but you'll get people saying, oh, that's wonderful. Oh, it's so funny, your little dance. Oh, your blooper reel, that was hilarious. Yeah. These are people that are never going to buy off you. They're just being supportive and nice, and they're damaging your business. And yeah, it's like we said at the beginning, it's balance. Having a gut instinct about what avenues could work well for your business, and then testing and measuring them properly, and do it in how do you eat a giant pizza? One slice at a time, or to be honest, any pizza. It's just do it in chunks, 2 or 3 things, test and measure. That's worked. Brilliant. We'll do more of that. That hasn't worked as well. Let's try something else, because it would be wonderful if there was like one marketing avenue that worked for everyone. And to be honest, Facebook ads, I probably would put that in that category, but nothing else.
No, it's.
I mean, what do you think about Clubhouse? I mean, there's a lot of pressure. I think very early days. Said very again. That's the 3rd time now. It's early days for Clubhouse. Lots of people have got involved. We're on it now, and I've listened to a few great things. Haven't totally got to grips with it, but I'm seeing lots of people say, oh, I'm on Clubhouse now, got an invite. But I'm also seeing people who are like, no, got enough on my plate, got enough social media, don't need anything else to clutter up my time. I mean, what are your got any predictions? Let's put things on the barbecue.
I have got some predictions. One, I think TikTok is mainstream now. And
you're not going to start dancing on TikTok, are you?
No, I'm absolutely not going to start dancing on TikTok. But I am seeing people that I respect.
Thank goodness for that.
I am seeing people that I respect and authors whose books I've read starting to use TikTok in a different way. So it'd be interesting to see what the next 12 months means for TikTok, because everyone's fed up of watching people dance, like you say.
Well, Reels, almost every reel that gets suggested to me on Instagram is just somebody dancing, or they've got a suit on, they wiggle about, and suddenly that suit is now a cycling outfit. They wiggle about, and now it's a bikini or something. Not what I want to see in a grown man.
Yeah, so I think TikTok's an interesting one. Clubhouse, just seems to be absolutely flying, and it's a great way to be able to listen to people live who you would otherwise have no chance of listening to and interacting with. And the same person who I know is going to be doing TikTok every day is a big advocate of Clubhouse at the moment, Rob Moore. He's really pushing hard about it. And I think he grew his following to something like 25,000 in 2 weeks on Clubhouse.
On Clubhouse?
Yeah.
Wow, that is good. Yeah, we're big Rob Moore fans, aren't we?
And he seems to be involved in quite a few rooms on there at the moment where there's some big hitters. I listened to one on Saturday, and it was really interesting. Just, about basically 12 business experts chewing the fat, and it was just, you can pick up a lot of information, and it was interesting. So
yeah, I listened to a Brad Burton one. Was it Friday or Saturday? Talk about the mental health and stuff.
Yeah,
really interesting. But it is one I haven't heard about for ages. And then my daughter said she was just talking with a friend on it. Snapchat. That's just seemed, well, that's not on our radar for any of our clients, but I mean, is that something that a lot of businesses are still using?
I think it depends on the demographic that they're aiming at. So I know our team, so the 3 girls in our team, perhaps not Fergus and some of the others, they communicate with Snapchat. They don't use text or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. They use Snapchat to communicate. So,
okay.
And they've never really moved away from that, because I guess to an extent it's disposable. Messages and pictures disappear after a certain amount of time. So they're kind of never held accountable for what they say or do.
So why would they use that instead of, say, WhatsApp? Is it literally just preference, or is there some facility and function that is better
WhatsApp,
for them?
Instagram, Facebook, it's kind of what slightly older people do, and young people like to be different.
Just the embarrassment of doing something their parents or, God forbid, grandparents would use.
Well, and normally, I guess, like that generation, kind of 11 to 23, 24, they're early adopters. So by the time everyone else is doing it, they've been there and done it, and they're on to the next thing. Well, we're seeing that with TikTok now, aren't we? Clubhouse is a bit different because it's actually aimed at a more professional demographic, I suppose. But it's not. And then I guess the other thing with Snapchat is, for someone like me, Instagram and Twitter have kind of taken all the features of Snapchat and included them. So why would what's the point in me moving to Snapchat? I don't need to send secret messages to people or pictures to people. So
yeah,
there's no gain for me.
So I mean, what's the solution to all this? I mean, what do you say to business owners who maybe have a bit of a realization that, okay, I've always done it this way, but I've realized things are changing, people are changing, tech's changing, and I'm scared of competitors nicking all my customers. I mean, is it literally a case of starting with a proper analysis of what's working for them and what isn't?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do we do?
I think there's a few things you need to look at with your kind of marketing strategy, and one that always gets massively overlooked is customer retention. If you're scared of losing customers to your competitors, what are you doing about it? Because it's all right saying feast or famine, every time someone leaves we'll get a new customer, don't worry. That's much harder than keeping a customer. So what are you doing to keep those customers? What information do they get every week? How do you update them on what the team's doing for them? What product updates do they get? What special offers do they get sent? What happens to them on their birthday? All these things that you could implement to make sure you're less afraid of losing customers to your competitors. That's
referrals, I guess, as well, isn't it? Encourage reviews, referrals.
Yeah.
I mean, reviews. I mean, that's massive, isn't it? I mean, everyone. That's another thing I think. Again, inverted commas, old school business people say that, all I need is word of mouth. And I know we've talked about that before, but okay, so you're relying on word of mouth. What are you proactively doing to encourage your customers to leave you word of mouth that will help you sell more of your products or services? How are you encouraging them to leave you a Google review, to recommend you on Facebook? How are you encouraging, or how are you steering them towards saying what you'd really ideally like them to say? And most of them aren't doing anything like that.
Yeah. I spoke to an auctioneer, and I'd say he was probably in his 80s, a retired auctioneer. And he said, "Oh, I built my business on word of mouth and reputation." I said, "Oh, okay, yeah." He said, "Yeah, every time I met a prospective customer who wanted to put their worldly wares through our auctions, I presented them with a nice bottle of Merlot." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "I thought you did everything by word of mouth." And he said, well, that is word of mouth. I said, no, that's a marketing strategy. What you were doing there was you were making sure that you were the first person to give something. So you're disarming the potential customer. So they already think you're a nice bloke before the conversation even began.
Yeah, but what were you saying? But you said something about Gary V recently, didn't you? About giving first.
Yeah, always be the first person to give. Yeah. So his logic. I mean, a lot of what his marketing.
He'll be on Clubhouse.
Yeah, he's on Clubhouse. Yeah, I listened to him on Clubhouse. But he's a very.
How many followers he got?
I don't know. I haven't looked at his profile, but he's very much about positivity and kindness.
You carry on talking. I'm going to have a quick look.
So yeah, he's very much about positivity and kindness. So he would say, if you're the first to give, that's a foundation that can never be taken away. So it might be something as simple as a podcast. So the people that first come into contact with Codebreak, maybe they hear us through the Stay Hungry podcast and they think, oh yeah, they used to put out a lot of free information. Or it might be you send a gift pack in the post to every new business on your business park. Or it could be when you go to networking at Christmas time, you give everybody in the room a gift. Whatever it might be, if you're the first to give, tends to be givers get. And another example of that would be if you go to a networking club and it's not really working for you, watch how that changes after you've bought from a couple of people in the room. So
that's amazing. So I remember saying to someone, he wasn't a client, but it invited him to a networking meeting. And to be honest, it was my fault. Maybe I hadn't explained how it all works. I just, to be honest, assumed it was, well, common sense, to be honest. But came to it, had a breakfast that I paid for, full English. All right. How was that? Oh, crap, met a few people, but, didn't get any business out of it. I said, well, did you pass any business then? And he was like, well, no. And just, well, are you not surprised then? And that whole giver's gain, which I think is BNI's philosophy, it's so true. And, I've got Gary V's profile on Clubhouse up here now. I mean, it literally just sums up what you just said. Honestly, I just really enjoy kindness and practicality, self-awareness and empathy. I love competition in the game, but I love the balance of being passionate about it and also knowing that it's insignificant. Oh, wow. Do you want to guess how many followers he's got?
Let's go with
216,000.
Wow. You didn't really let me have a chance to have a guess there.
Yeah, sorry, there's a bit of a time lag here. I think, because my kids are on Google Classroom, so there's a bit of a bad connection. But it's 216,000.
Was it 216,000? Is my time
yes
not landing?
Yes, we better stop it with the jokes. I think the internet won't allow it.
Okay, time lag hilarity cancelled. So what do you do about growing your email database, Andy? You've already nailed your customer retention. You've already nailed communication with existing clients. What about making sure you've got prospects in your funnel?
So in the interest, as we're on a bit of a theme about giving stuff away, in the old days, you could have a little form on your website maybe that said, let us stay in touch with you with our marvelous newsletters, and people would give their first name and their email address and it would happen like magic. But again, a lot of people, they want something now. We've already talked about people wanting deals and discounts and offers. So if people are very, people are precious about their inbox. To be honest, a lot of these people just need to get over themselves. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast. What will I get in return for my email address? That's a popular question. So if you want to grow your email database, it's great to have a page or a form on your website where people can leave their details and automatically they get added to a list. But if you were to give something away to encourage the acquisition of that email address, surprise, surprise, it will work even better for you. So we design a lot of lead magnets for clients. So for a business to consumer client, it could be some kind of offer or discount. and in return they get a code and all that kind of stuff. If it's business to business, some kind of PDF, some free fact sheet, cheat sheet, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you truly want to grow your email database, it comes down to money talk. So pay to drive people to this page where they can sign up. So we do a lot of landing pages for clients where we'll use a specific landing page software provider, drive people to it, target people through a Facebook ad or Google ad. And there's a whole page about why you need to sign up for this free cheat sheet. Enter your email address and Bob's your auntie's live-in lover.
Which means your uncle. Ha ha!
We talked about this, Joel.
And okay, so now you've got people in your funnel and you've built up kind of your contact list. What kind of strategies do you need to have in place for customer acquisition?
So on your email database, on the emails you're sending out?
Well, all in really, all in. What's the solution for acquiring customers?
Let's assume that someone isn't a customer. They've signed up to receive your lead magnet. They're in the funnel, and it's important that your funnel is automated. Again, if every email you send is manual, you're missing a trick. So you work out a schedule, a frequency of sending. And the important thing is, even though you want the sale, if all your emails do is go for the kill, you're missing the point of email marketing. You've got to, like we say with a social media post, it's got to educate, inspire, or entertain. And so your emails just the same. Now, drop in the odd cheeky sell and discount and offer, of course. But if your primary goal is to sell products, pay for ads, don't bother with email marketing. Email marketing is building up loyalty, trust, familiarity. Like with networking, it's the same as networking. You can't be the guy who turns up once, tries to pillage for business, doesn't get anything and says, oh, networking's crap, I'm not going to do it anymore. You've got to be in it for the long haul. So email marketing is a long haul strategy. But again, if you do it during the good times, it'll protect you or help protect you during the bad times. Mm-hmm. And these people will become more likely to become customers and buy off you. They'll be more likely to stick with you because you've literally earned their trust. And they'll be more likely to refer you. So again, if you say, Andy, Joel, I want you to make my phone start ringing tomorrow, email marketing wouldn't be the answer. But to be honest, you wouldn't want to help that client anyway. So it is one of the best things a business can do, but it ain't a short-term strategy. But as we always say, most business owners are in this for the long term. So for long-term success, you need to apply a long-term strategy. God, that was deep, wasn't it?
For long-term success, you need to apply a long-term strategy. Andy Rowe, everyone.
Right. So yeah. Customer retention, I think email marketing, does cover off a lot of that, and that almost is old school marketing now. But like we said, a lot of people still don't do it. What about proactive strategies for customer acquisition? So email marketing. I mean, let's bite the bullet. We've talked about money. We're not ashamed to say if you can't. Well, we do always say if you can't or won't pay to acquire a new customer, you haven't got a sustainable or a scalable business. So right, Joel, I've got some money here. What do I spend it on?
So let's assume you've got some sort of lead magnet and a website in place. So that might be an offer, it might be whatever it might be. In your first instance, you need to spend some money on driving some traffic. So you're spending on ads to get people to your website or your landing page. You probably need to spend some money on some conversion traffic, so people who are going to actually convert, and you probably need to spend some money on retargeting, so anybody that doesn't convert is continuing to be shown your adverts. That would be
hang on, Joel. Stop the press. Do you mean there are ads that can tell me for when I spend £5, they'll tell me how much that generated? Are you joking? What is this newfangled science?
Yes, there are ads that will do that, Andy.
So wouldn't you say that's, I suppose, joking aside, the old adage about I know half my advertising works, I just don't know which half. A lot of people's reticence about spending money on ads is they don't really know whether they're going to work or not. But whereas now, that shouldn't always be the case.
Yeah. And I think when you speak to a seasoned business owner, their idea of well, maybe not old, but experience. But their idea of an ad working is different to somebody new to business. So very often, if you're a startup business, you'll be keen to be making money as quickly as possible. So adverts are only working if they're directly generating you revenue, where somebody a bit longer in the tooth would probably say, well, actually, if they're driving the right kind of people at your website, they will buy when they're ready to buy. And there's a distinction there, because there's the business that urgently wants customers here and now, and there's the business that wants to build relationships with people who will then become customers over a long period of time. And obviously every business likes the cash injection of the here and now, but would it be better to have 10 quid now or 10 quid 4 times a year for 20 years? And I know which one I'd choose.
Obviously, like my cycling. So I buy my cycling gear off two main brands, and one of them's a UK-based company, although they're all over the world now, called Rafa. Now, I bought off Rafa, and I bought numerous times. But guess what? I still see their ads. Whereas you and I know there are business owners out there. It's like, well, I've got them now. Why do I need to pay to stay in front of them? And Rafa don't spam me. It's not like every time I go onto the internet or turn Facebook on, I'm constantly served their ads. But every now and then, at least 2 or 3 times a week, I will see some kind of advert from them. And that's so important. Like you say, get people into your funnel. You stay in touch with via email. Serve people an ad. That doesn't mean you serve them an ad once. And I know I've certainly found that some people, they get a bit uncomfortable about that. They're like, well, why do I need to spend money when I've already got in front of them? And would I also run the risk of annoying them?
Yeah, absolutely. No, you won't annoy them. And if you do annoy them, they were never going to buy off you anyway. That's as blunt as I can be about that. For most people, if they start seeing your ads everywhere, it's only going to plant the seed that you're a far more established business than they realised.
Wow, that's some. Oh, I want to write that one down, Joel, before I forget it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction. When people see adverts of businesses, they know that they're paying for those adverts, and so psychologically, you give the impression of being a very well-established business. That isn't a negative. If people are annoyed by your adverts, they were never going to buy from you. So why are you worried about it?
I mean, emails are a good one for this. I mean, there's a big fear with a lot of businesses about how many times you send emails out. Now, there are quite a few marketers we know who they do a daily email. And in fact, that's almost their main pitch. It's sign up for my daily emails. I will send you daily inspiration. So straight away, they almost pre-qualify people. It's like, oh God, I don't want an email once a day. Well, brilliant. Don't sign up for me then. Job done. Mm-hmm. Whereas we've got some clients who, I don't really want to send an email more than once a month. It's like, that ain't enough. That ain't enough. By the time 30 days has gone, how many times your competitors could have got in front of your customers and potential customers? It's finding about. Now, I think I read a study. I think it was it Hootsuite or HubSpot. I think the sweet spot on average, if we were to discount whatever industry someone's in, the average sweet spot was at least once a fortnight. Yeah. And I think you go any less than that, you run the risk of email marketing not working for you. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's the same with Facebook ads. You can't just serve a Facebook ad to somebody, once a month, can you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just not. It's not how the game works. That's the reality. Is that perception is everything. Now, there was a reason that back in the day, major companies bought the footer space on a newspaper so that they had the footer space 5 or 6 days a week. It was because they wanted you to be seen over and over and over again. And you can achieve that with Facebook and Google. You can serve content to people that's relevant to them. So maybe they've been on a certain page of your website, so you know they're interested in a certain product or service. Well, then why not only serve them adverts about the thing they were looking at? Because chances are that isn't going to annoy them, because you know they spent a minute looking at it yesterday. And that's where you need to get to with your customer acquisition. Is don't think of your adverts as blindly shouting into the abyss. Your adverts are your opportunity to show content that's important to the people who might buy from you. Wow.
Yeah, that's I mean, do you think most of this comes? I mean, some of it comes down to, I suppose, lack of knowledge. But I think a lot of this comes down to fear, doesn't it? We're talking about like fear of getting in front of people too often, but a fear of technology. And if maybe it's a fear of change. It's that, yeah, I've always done it this way. It's done okay for me, maybe. But if you've got a niggling that things should be better, or in fact, obviously, current times, they need to be better, things need to change. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten.
Yeah.
So if you're happy with the results, stay as you are, mate, with no website, no ads, relying on word of mouth, that's fine. But I guess we're talking to the other business owners out there who suspect that things could be better, or again, they need to be better. And for that to happen, change needs to happen. And it's looking at the technology, the processes, the testing and measuring that is available to many different types of ads now to find out what's working and what isn't working. And then you'll know basically where to spend money. So if you can get a handle on okay, well, when I spend X amount of time and money on this is what I get out of it.
Yeah.
And being in it for the long haul. It's to come back to that short-term thinking. It's like, oh, Joel, shit, right. I've lost a client. I need to get a new client tomorrow. Bung £5 behind a Facebook ad. That's just not sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So someone's listened to this podcast and they've realised they no longer want to try and do all this stuff themselves, or maybe they're really good at outsourcing, but they've not quite got their website right, or they've not quite got their customer acquisition strategy right. What do they do?
Phone us.
Hey!
Hey! Actually, don't phone us. That's a bit old school. They go to our website. Works properly on the mobile. Thank God. If you go to codebreak.co.uk and apply for a discovery call, we can have a 20-minute chat about what your challenges are, what's keeping you up at night, because that's what it's about. This is a people game. It's about what do you want? You know, you're the business owner. What do you want out of life? Because I presume it's not just to eke by or to go, like, say, from feast or famine. And it's about coming out with a strategy that will suit you and accountably move you closer towards your goals. And that will involve different kinds of tech, different kinds of automation. But it all starts with people's creative ideas. And if that sounds like something for you, again, go to codebreak.co.uk, get that call booked in. We'd love to help.
Awesome. And with that, we'll see you next week for another episode of Stay Hungry. Take care, everyone.